I'm Dracula, blah blah blah. Whoops, wrong movie. Today on the channel, I'm going to be talking about a Dracula movie called Renfield that is a horror comedy film now available to check out in theaters. But the biggest question you're all wondering, is this worth your time? Well, stick around and find out my thoughts. Renfield, Dracula's henchman, an inmate at the lunatic asylum for decades, longs for a life away from the Count, his various demands, and all the bloodshed that comes with them. The film stars Nicolas Hoult, Nicolas Cage, Awkwafina, and Ben Schwartz, and many others, and was directed by Chris McKay, and he's directed films like The Tomorrow War and also the Lego Batman movie. Renfield. So there was 5 new movies coming out this week in the theaters, and this is the one that I saw being advertised the most, so I went ahead and checked this one out first out of all the 5 new releases this week. We start off with Nicolas Hoult actually narrating and talking about his story. He's in what you would call a domestic relationship abuse meeting, kind of like an alcoholic kind of meeting, and they basically are talking about their problems in their relationships. And we learn that Nicolas Hoult has been serving Dracula for 80 years, in which he's had a lot of problems with him. He's also helping out these people at this meeting as he's killing off a lot of their people that have domestically abused them, and he's feeding them the Dracula so he can gain power. And that's one portion of the story. This town that they are staying in, they are ran by these drug dealers, and there's 6 different types of groups within the town. And we get to hear about the Lobo family, who apparently isn't the best drug dealers, but they are at war with the police. And that's when Awkwafina comes in, as she's a police officer, and we learn her motives of actually tracking down the Lobo family is because her father was killed. And of course, there is this big war between the police, and that's really your main stories. The positives that I can say about this movie is, first off, the makeup with Nicolas Cage before he really comes into full power as Dracula and he's getting fed all these different people to eat. He has a really messed up face and he's really trying to get back to form, and I thought they did a really good job with the makeup. I like his lair and where he stays. He stays in an abandoned hospital. From the piano to the candles to the lighting, they have this green tint lighting that really makes it really dark, dingy, and creepy. And I also like the lighting in the beginning of the film where Nicolas Hoult is actually narrating. It has that blue tint kind of lighting. I thought they did a really good job of actually having different kinds of color lighting in this film. I thought that it really did represent certain parts in the film very well. And I also did like the fact that this movie, it does have some blood, some gore, and it can be very campy at moments. And I think when actually Nicolas Cage is on screen and he's playing Dracula and he's really in charge, I think those are the best moments of the film. But I also feel like there isn't a lot of campy moments that really make the film really flow very well. I think that the movie is very all over the place, and that really leads into my negatives. The biggest problem with this film to me is it really couldn't decide on a genre. Is it action? Is it comedy? Is it horror? Is it romance? They try to throw in this romance that really felt really off with Awkwafina and Nicolas Hoult, and I found that they really tried to shoehorn that in, and I just really never felt the romance. I thought that it was just something that really didn't need to be in the film. And then you have the action portion in here where we follow the Lobo family, in which they're very weak and they really suck at really being drug dealers. I think they should have been called the Lamos because they really didn't entertain me. And then they have the ringleader of their group, which was the mother, and she sounded like she's chain smoked tons of packs of cigarettes a day. She really didn't really feel menacing to me. The movie is definitely a suspension of disbelief, and I say that because there is a lot of CGI gore in this film. For instance, there is one scene where you have Renfield actually fighting a bunch of different people, and a bunch of arms get ripped off, and he uses them as nunchucks. And there's other parts in the film where, for example, Awkwafina, she has a pistol and she's fighting all these different guys. They have a bunch of assault rifles and she takes them down with a pistol. I mean, come on. I also felt like Awkwafina in here, she plays the same character that she's played in pretty much every other movie. I don't think she does anything really spectacular here. So I didn't really care for her character that much, as I just felt like it's the same character that I've seen in most films that she's done, but I also think that the way that she's hired on to a lot of these movies, that's really what they want her to do. So I don't really think it's necessarily her fault. I just think that they really hire her to do the same thing over and over and over. And I just didn't really laugh at the comedy here. I didn't really think anything was too funny. Nick Cage, he isn't on screen as much as I thought he would be. I found that there are parts in this film where he really did show his dominance, and he really does show how in the beginning, Nicholas Hoult, he talks about how Dracula, he's always kind of messing up things, and they have to move to different towns because he keeps doing that, and they basically have to start over. I felt like there was one scene where they really showcased his power and dominance, and I was like, yeah, I really want more of this, but we don't get a lot of that. So unfortunately, it just doesn't really focus too much into the campy aspect. It really does go much into the action, over-the-top action, I would say, but I don't really think that it really goes into the horror aspect too much in this film, and I feel like the comedy in here is definitely a miss. I don't think I laughed at all in this film, and overall the jokes and just the way that the actual story was put together, I thought it was a little bit complicated, and I think it could have been a lot more fun, and I feel like it's just really a miss for me. And I feel like after watching this film, it was just kind of meh for me. I definitely like some things about it, and I think that it could have took a little bit different direction, but unfortunately it's kind of messy and the editing is kind of choppy at points. So unfortunately for me, I would give a score of this film a 2 out of 5. But let me know in the comments, have you seen Renfield? Did you like it? Was it kind of meh? Was it terrible? Do you agree with my rating? If you haven't seen it, is it something that you're going to check out soon? Thank you guys for checking out this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.